Welcome into the KSO Show. I am Mason Voth. That is KSU fan and Drew Galloway. It is the Sunday Show, and we are here with a little bit more basketball reaction, things to talk about. We bring in our level-headed analyst, Jimmy, to give us maybe a different perspective on what happened yesterday. Probably not, just in a nicer way from him, I would guess. And then we will talk about K-State's matchup with Rutgers in the Rate Bowl, as the Wildcats will have one final football game of the 2024 season. And then we'll finish it with some other stuff looking around the Big 12 and how college football as a whole will play out this bowl season. We have the final fraud watch of the year, which is just a little tease for everybody. We had 2 frauds get fired this offseason already, and 1 new fraud has already been hired. So we're gonna dive deep into that to close things out today. But we will open things up by starting to talk about K-State basketball one final time this weekend. They lose to St. John's 88-71. Drew and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, and then Fan brought it up when he got on here. I predicted K-State to lose by 15. It somehow felt worse than that when they lost by basically the margin that I thought they would, mainly because of how it happened. The Wildcats led by 4 at the half. They got a bucket immediately out of the break from Coleman Hawkins to go up 6 in the second half, and then everything was downhill from there. So Drew and I already kind of said our piece about this, Fan, but I'll let you go and tell us what your thoughts were about this individual game and then where you feel about this team coming out of it.
Yeah, the funny thing was it was such a tale of 2 halves, or at least 3/4 of the first half, where I felt like this is the team we thought we were getting this season, and it felt like the effort and intensity, and even though it was ugly, I think you pointed out the first half was ugly, but K-State was playing hard, and effort says something, and toughness and physicality and matching your opponent says something, and K-State did that most of the first half. You felt it slip a little bit at the end of the half, and I thought, well, maybe that was just a one-off. But as you said, as soon as that first bucket was made by Hawkins, the wheels fell off rather quickly, and I think they were up double digits within 7 or 8 minutes in the second half, and K-State made a little dent. And Drew, you pointed out the Doug McDaniels play where we had a fast break down 5. He goes to the rim and throws it out to nobody, and then St. John scores like 6 quick points, and all of a sudden it's back up to 12, and then it was over at that point. K-State never really threatened. The second half was just brutal. Just to get overmatched in pretty much every phase of the game by St. John's. The proof of Jim Ulrich comes back again of fool's gold for 3-point shots, as K-State goes 8 of 15 in the first half and 0 of 10 in the second. Although, Brendan Housen has 21 at halftime, and you get him 2 shots in the second half. Some of that, St. John's played better defense, but he was also, I think I pointed out on Twitter, he was also more open in the first half than I had ever seen him this season. And I was like, what is St. John's doing? How are they leaving him open? And I don't know if we kind of ran out of gas. I think DY astutely pointed out how many guys they played and how many we played. We played basically 7. And I think we did run out of gas a little bit in that game. But, point guard play says a lot. And when your point guards combine for 1 assist and I think 3 for 21 from the floor, you're not going to win very many games with that kind of point guard play against Power 5 opponents, Power 2 opponents, or whatever we're calling it now. And Rutgers is a good team. I think you pointed out LSU is okay. Liberty is, a nice mid-major that's not a Power 5 level team. This was the first real good team we've played, and they showed why they're a real good team, and we showed why we're not right now, and we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah, it's not feeling good right now with the direction that it's moving in. And it was weird how open Brendan Hausen was to start the game. I think what you saw though was that St. John's, it seemed like the matchup that Hausen had in the first half, he didn't really have it a lot in the second. So they clearly made an adjustment to something that seemed to be their flaw. And their problem was a little bit more simple than what some of K-State's issues have been this year. But I think a lot of people will look around and say, man, it feels like I've noticed a lot of the same problems for K-State throughout the year, and the adjustments just haven't come. and a lot of complaints coming on how K-State looks on the offensive end. And I would put a lot of it on the offensive philosophy yesterday in the second half, because the fact that you weren't able to make a single three in the second, to me, it wasn't just bad shooting. It was more a product of bad offense. It didn't even look like K-State was getting good looks in the second half. Very rarely did it feel like that they had one. If it wasn't coming on transition, and then when they were in transition, they were rolling the ball out of bounds or throwing it to somebody that they shouldn't have. So what do you make of the way that K-State, not just that they unraveled and looked poorly in this game, but how it happened and what that means moving forward for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you talk about the 3-point line, which was critical, but also inside the paint. St. John's shot 68% from two in the second half. K-State shot 46% from two. Both shot 22 2-point shots. K-State was forced to shoot more jump shots from two than they have all year as well. I think they ended up going 4 for 19 on 2-point jumpers, which is not a great percentage. But they're only 13 to 27 at the rim. That's 48%. You generally, a good team is going to make 60% of their shots or 65% at the rim. And, I knew that would be a problem coming in. Rick Pitino teams, like throughout his entire career, I was looking at, the stat log through the years for Rick Pitino's. They always block a lot of shots, and they always force teams to shoot under 50% from two, which is really good. And I think that showed up. K-State had lots of shots around the rim, around the basket that were bothered, and K-State could not finish. K-State shot some tough twos too as well, runners and, like I said, jump shots and shots going away from the rim that you're not going to get makes on, and you're not going to get foul calls on, and that was a big deal as well. K-State ended up shooting 20 free throws, which was more than St. John's, but it kind of felt like a lot of those came the last 10 minutes when the game was already out of hand. They weren't doing that in the first half for sure. They shot 2 free throws, and I think most of the second half they weren't until it was out of hand, and they kind of started drawing some fouls. Probably because St. John's was getting tired as well. But, you get beat in the paint 44 to 32. The turnover, K-State only had eight turnovers. That used to be our thing. Like if K-State's under 14 or whatever, they're going to win. That has not been the case this year. And I think we're seeing, in some ways there's some better things on offense, but the defense is dropping off big time, especially against good opponents. All three of the decent opponents we've played have been at 1.1 points per possession or more, and you're simply not going to beat teams when you're giving up points like that. And there's just it's hard to know where to start with this team because, as you said, we have plenty of issues on offense, but Tang was supposed to be known for defense, and this team is not very good defensively right now, and that's a major problem.
I said it on the board earlier this morning, but the way that it kind of feels like K-State basketball is constructed right now, it's like the guy that has never really bet on sports before. So the first time he does it, he turns $5 into like $200 on some crazy parlay. And so then you feel like, oh, this is just how it goes. This is what I should do continuously. And then he just loses repeatedly $5 and $10 bets until he's, down to back around where he started. And you start to wonder what's going on. That's what K-State basketball feels like, where you got a little bit of, in year one, you scramble to put this roster together. Yes, you were fortunate enough to have a sleeping giant in Marquise Noel on the roster, and everything just worked out. But then you try to replicate that moving forward because you think, hey, this is easy. And I know that Jerome Tang would say, like, they know that it's not easy. But when you step in year one, he's gone, 2 decades of success at Baylor. He probably does feel like it's really easy in that moment. And it's not his fault. Like, that's just the experiences he has now to go off of. And so I think they thought we can do it. Last year, they were, they were right there. Their issues, maybe they were solved last year, and they are a tournament team if Naquan Tomlin plays. And they have one other body that can play the one for you if Quez Glover's available, even if it's not much. Maybe it helps you out. But then this year, you feel like, again, hey, if I do all this, we get all this talent, we get all this NIL stuff going, it's going to set up nicely. And it just seems like when you build a team like this, you have to either be really confident that you can make the pieces work no matter what, or the pieces do work when you bring them in. And what we are seeing right now is that neither one of those things are happening. The pieces do not fit together, and this coaching staff currently is not putting them together. And we're a month into the season at this point now, and you've played 9 basketball games. We should start to see signs that this thing is getting better. And if we thought we saw it in the first half yesterday. It's like, okay, the energy's there. It was ugly, but both teams were ugly. And then in the second half, it just completely unraveled because what we found out was St. John's locked in. They played better basketball, and it was basically 20 points better than what K-State could provide. So they've got a lot to get sorted through. But as it stands right now, this does not seem to be going in a promising direction. Drew and I have already talked a lot about it with Drake and Wichita State coming up to close out non-conference play. Those teams are playing good basketball right now, and especially the Wichita State one should scare people on the road. And like I said yesterday, that is going to be the biggest game Wichita State basketball has probably played since they faced KU in the NCAA tournament, like Drew said. So this is going to be a grind for them, and they got to get right quick. They have to win these next 2. If they don't win both of them, then you can write this team off, and there's really zero chance that they do what needs to happen in Big 12 play to become an NCAA tournament team. And it's going to be a pretty bad and no fun basketball season. And that's going to lead to a pretty bad and no fun off season. And you start to wonder how you build this team, because you're not going to be able to do it with recruiting, because you've already pretty much punted on this year. Because once again, the staff has whiffed on the top prospects of this cycle that they thought that they were going to be in and have a chance on, and not even making the top 4 for AJ DeBonsa. And then you look around and they haven't really tried anywhere else in the high school market here. So this thing is unraveling quickly, and they have to find a way to get some things changed. And you hope you can do it this year, but really you're probably going to need to start thinking more about how you try and pitch yourself for next season moving forward. But we'll do the temp check real quick. NCAA, NIT, nothing. Drew, fan, where we go here?
Nothing. Like it could get really bad. And like that's kind of what we talked about yesterday with, you look at K-State's schedule. I don't know a game right now where I'm like, oh, yep, K-State's winning that one. Because if they get towards the game that I pointed out, which was like that home game against Oklahoma State at the end of January, if K-State hasn't won a game before then, I don't think that they'll win another game this season, because I think that they'll be pretty checked out. I have questions on how locked in they are right now. The play that I keep going back to is when Jerome Tang's trying to call timeout. Coleman Hawkins pushes it both times yesterday. And that's, even like to some extent, that's my problem with the offense, because when it seems like that they're like running a set and running an offense, it looks like they're actually like know how to play basketball. But it seems like that sometimes they have too much freedom, and that's what causes the offense to get really bogged down. But yeah, I'm going to say nothing, because I think it could get really ugly if they don't win a game quick.
Yeah, I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to K-State basketball, but I'm currently in the nothing camp, because they're going to have 10 to 12 more games as hard or harder than LSU and St. John's left on this schedule, at least, maybe more than that. And it doesn't look like they can compete with those teams. I mean, both those were double-digit losses to the 2 Power 5 teams you've played. So what's going to happen in this league when you play teams that are like that but better? So it's tough. It's tough to see through it. I think it's going to come down to getting this team to come together, and it looks like they're still a far way from getting to that point. And until they get to that point and they get the guard play consistently that they need, especially point guard play, as we know, that's how college basketball goes. And right now, it's a long ways. I mean, last year you had a point guard that wasn't a point guard playing point guard, and it was bad enough. Now you have, at least he played hard and he gave great effort, and I think he cared. Right now, it's hard to say that with what we're seeing from the point guard play. And unless that changes in a hurry, this team is going to have a tough time winning games.
Yeah, and it's just not looking good. And this is where you can also see that in the NIL era, how I think a basketball team, even more so than a football team, can unravel pretty quickly in this, because most of the guys that on this team, Drew and I talked about yesterday, the fans have no emotional connection and buy into them. Like that, there are going to be some pretty ugly crowds coming up for K-State basketball, because like I said yesterday, the people that are watching this team, they did not watch a single minute of Coleman Hawkins or Doug McDaniel or a Chor or any of these guys play basketball before they got to K-State. Most of these people only watch K-State and then maybe the Big 12, maybe a handful of other games, but they don't know who these guys are. Why should they care about them? And vice versa. Why should guys that have only been here for 3 months and are only going to be here for 6, why are they going to have any buy-in or care? So it goes both ways here, and it paints a picture that it's not going to end very well. So and this falls squarely at the feet of Jerome Tang and his staff for how they built this team, and it's on them to get it fixed. And if not, they're going to have to carry a lot of the heat that is thrown their way. And I know people are frustrated and are asking about, okay, what's the move that Gene Taylor can make? Here's the deal: Gene Taylor really can't make this move. I mean, if I'm correct in the way that I read the contract, you'd have to pay about $19 million to fire Jerome Tang this year. So that's certainly not going to happen. And I would say, as much as I want K-State basketball to be fixed and playing better immediately, I don't even think you would, if the buyout was manageable, punt after this year on Jerome Tang, because I still think that he does and says and has the idea of a lot of the correct things that you need to be successful at a high level at K-State. And I would like to believe that you don't just go to an Elite Eight by accident at a place like K-State. I know that we talked about how some of the stuff fell in place at the right time, but I would tend to believe that that's an area where the staff needs to focus a little bit more on how they built that team and say, okay, it fit together, but also the personalities on that team made a lot more sense. Like Marquise Noel was going to go to war for anybody, and he's always felt slighted. He had something to play for. Keontae Johnson obviously was trying to prove himself back. Desi Sills brought a ton of energy, and like, if this team needs at least 3 Desi Sills, I think, to be playing better basketball right now. And then you had enough other guys that knew their role and were comfortable in it, like Ish Massoud and David Gasson. You just don't have that right now. So I think you have to look back and realize you have to be better about analyzing the personalities that make up a basketball team, because basketball is so reliant on the 5 guys on the floor being in sync with each other, more so than football. Like, yeah, the quarterback and receivers have to be, kind of in line with each other and know, okay, he'll be here, I can do this. But it's still a pretty simple game, because more times than not, the running back has to hit the hole and the quarterback has to hit the open receiver. And that doesn't really take a lot of, hey, we're buddies, we're tight, we know where things are working out here. Basketball, it's a lot more connected. And you also play a lot more games in basketball. So you got to be on the same page a lot more than you do in football. But we'll talk more about basketball as we move on here as well. But
I think that you pointed out Desi Sills. I think that this team could use a Bebe, a guy that is just a grown-ass man that understands his role and is going to go out there and play hard. This team has maybe 2 guys that play hard, and I think that is a lot of the cause of angst and frustration, because if they don't look like they care, why should anybody else?
Yep.
And
it's the same thing that I told myself when I would leave Bruce games early in my freshman year. Like, they played Baylor, I think, right after we got back from Christmas break. And I probably the first K-State basketball game I ever left early, where I was just like, why am I going to sit here and watch this if they're not going to bring it? But this team even more so, because that's not even fair to those players and Bruce, because I know that all those guys did care. They just sucked at that moment. And they had some really bad games. This team, you're right. This is not, the talent is there to not suck, but I don't know that the brain is there to not suck.
This team doesn't look like they care, and they look like anytime there's any face of adversity, they will just lay down. So it's been pretty awful to watch them play against teams that are decent.
I hate to, have the old man take here of, relying on this and everything. That would be, stereotypical. But, if you just lay down when adversity comes, Well, you've built an entire team out of the transfer portal. So that is, for the most part, what a lot of these guys did. Like, in theory, Doug McDaniel could have stayed at Michigan and played for a coach that went to the Final Four 2 years ago. In a lot of circumstances, Michigan probably better off now with Dusty May than they were at any point in the 2 years or the year before Doug McDaniel got there with Juwan Howard. Same type of thing with Coleman Hawkins. Like, guy loves Illinois. You could have stayed at Illinois for a 5th year, right? Like, you could have found a way to make it happen. Again, situations are different, and I'm using those more as just like a painting of this picture as opposed to knowing for certain the details and everything that go into it. But that is the way this is going to get generalized. And we'll see if K-State or any of these guys care to get it fixed. I think there are some guys on this team that care. And at the end of the day, you feel bad for a guy like David Gasson in this situation. That is, he's put 3 years into this now. He's put almost a full old school legit career into this in college. And obviously that guy cares. He wants the best. He got a taste of it his first year, and it doesn't feel like a lot of the other guys around him are picking up the slack. And also probably goes to show that a lot of people were unfair last year to guys like Tyler Perry and Cam Carter. So we'll see what goes on with K-State basketball. Their next chance to flip things around comes 9 days from now when they face Drake in Kansas City in the T-Mobile Center. So we'll move on. We'll talk football. Obviously a much cheerier subject right now than basketball, considering the first line in the bowl story I wrote today was that K-State limped to an 8-4 finish. But K-State is going to get to play one more game, chance at a third straight 9-win season. They will play in the Rate Bowl against Rutgers. Rutgers 7-5 this year, 4-5 in Big Ten play. Really just one guy on their roster that I know of or care to know of, and that's Kyle Munganai, their running back, who is kind of built like a stocky tank and is basically what they would want to base their offense around. Drew pointed out they played a bad schedule this year, and they still went 4-5 in Big Ten play because Rutgers was a hot team at the start of the year of people throwing out the theory of, hey, Rutgers could play in the Big Ten title game. Have you seen that schedule? And they managed to finish with 5 losses with the weakest Big Ten schedule imaginable. So
Rutgers is what everybody thought Indiana could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. So K-State will get to face Rutgers now in the Rate Bowl. It will take place the day after Christmas in Phoenix. 4:30 on ESPN will be the Wildcats and the Scarlet Knights. Second meeting ever after K-State got boat raced in the 2006 Texas Bowl down in Houston. I do not think that Ray Rice is going to be on this Rutgers team, though. So, and Ron Prince is not going to be on the K-State sideline. So those are two things that seem to be going in a good direction for K-State here. Drew, I'll let you have the first crack at this since Fan was basketball heavy for us. What is your reaction to K-State in the Rate Bowl and the matchup with Rutgers?
So I got a couple things before we even dive into Rutgers. Number one, feels like K-State is in this game about every 3 or 4 years, and it always has a different sponsor. So that's kind of fun.
Fifth time playing in this game. First time was way back when in the Copper Bowl against Wyoming. And then the next time they played in it was the Insight Bowl, and then Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, the Cactus Bowl, and now we sit here in the Rate Bowl. They missed out on the era that was like when the Cheez-It Bowl was originally here in Phoenix, and then it was the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Now it's just the Rate Bowl. So, yes, they've played here a lot.
Yeah, Guaranteed getting dropped. That's tough also. But I mean, you look at it, and Rutgers played probably the worst Power 4 schedule of the entire season. I mean, they played a Big Ten schedule that didn't have Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, or Indiana on it. So that's pretty wild to think about. Then they only won 7 games.
Real quick for you, Rutgers 72nd in strength of schedule in the country. That was the worst in the Big Ten. The only team with a worse strength of schedule in the Big Ten was Indiana at 67. And then nobody else in the Big Ten was outside of the top 50. So those two by far played the worst schedules in the Big Ten this season.
No, that definitely tracks if you look at it and dive in. I mean, Fan and I said that Illinois was probably the best team that they played. Rutgers' best win is probably Minnesota. So really hard to judge this team. They got pantsed the entire month of October. Like they lost 42-7 to a Wisconsin team that was so bad that they fired their offensive coordinator mid-season and then hired Jeff Grimes, thinking that that was the answer. They also lost to UCLA, who was pretty terrible. Like, this is a fascinating game because I have watched probably half of a Rutgers game in the last 3 seasons. But Monangai is really good. He's really fun. But other than that, like, there's not a whole lot that makes me be like, "Ooh, this could be a scary game." Very similar vibes to the NC State game last year of like they had one guy on offense. Rutgers has one guy on offense. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that one guy on NC State's offense, he should come be a Wildcat next year. His brother already decided to. And I don't think there are as many Rutgers football fans, so I don't think we have to worry about comments like NC State fans last year. And look who turned out to be right there. K-State led by basically 2 scores that entire game. Just to add some context to what Drew is saying, we've already talked about how bad the schedule is. Let's talk about it a little bit more. There were 3 Power 4 teams, or 3 Power 4 teams that had a worse strength of schedule than Rutgers this season. 2 were ACC schools. 1 was a Big 12 school. So, Fan, I'll let you have the first crack here at trying to get one. Just name one, and then we'll go back and forth until we get him here. So, 1 Big 12 school, 2 ACC schools with a worse strength of schedule than Rutgers. Boise State also had a worse one at 78, and they are in the playoff as the 3 seed ahead of Arizona State.
But I was told that the Mountain West was dominant.
It was good league.
I would, my Big 12 guess would be Texas Tech.
That is correct. 1 spot behind Rutgers at 73. So just 2 ACC schools remain. One of them finished with a really good record, depending on how you want to decide that. And the other fired their coach. So have at it, Drew. Those are your 2 ACC hints.
The one with a good record, is that Syracuse?
That is Syracuse, 74th in the country, so bunched in there.
Look at Fan and I. That's a shocking 2 for 2. I cannot lie.
So I guess the other one has to be North Carolina.
North Carolina, 93rd in strength of schedule this year.
Mac still got fired. Wow.
Yeah, 93rd. Now, I guess to be fair, they did lose their starting quarterback in their season opener at Minnesota, but yeah, they sucked. Not a lot going on there. They had teams with a better strength of schedule than North Carolina this year. Middle Tennessee, Army, Utah State, Ball State, UTEP, Northern Illinois, Charlotte, Nevada, Bowling Green, just to name a few. So, yeah, Rutgers did not play the toughest of schedules. They end up limping their way to 7-5, and they did almost beat Illinois, who's probably the best team they faced this year. It took a miracle for Illinois to finish it off up there in New Jersey. But their wins this season, they beat Howard, Akron, Virginia Tech, Washington, Minnesota, Maryland, and Michigan State. Their losses came to teams that outside of Illinois weren't really thought of as being much this year: Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, and USC. So this is a team that they have some fine pieces. Callie McManus, their quarterback, is a pretty slightly above average quarterback in college football, at least numbers wise. But this is a matchup certainly that you would feel like is served on a silver platter for Chris Kleiman to get to a 9th win this season and maybe take a sliver of the heat that he's taking off his back right now. I think it would still be there. But how do you see this matchup from your side and perspective, Fan?
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it well. I mean, they played a bunch of 6-6 and 5-7 and 4-8 teams, and their defense is not good. Their offense is slightly above average. I would say overall in the metrics, they average out right about 50, and they're ranked like right at 50 in almost every one of the 7 major metrics I look at. So K-State's about 20 5 spots better than them in the metrics, 20 to 25. So, K-State will be favored by 10 or more, probably by most sites. The SP Plus would have K-State as 11-point favorite. I think 10.5 is 11-point favorite. Rutgers run defense, if you look at most of the things, is ranked in the 90s to 100 or better. 4.9 yards per carry allowed is 106 in the country. Line yards, 89th in the country as far as their defense goes. So not great there. Offensively, they do have a solid run game, but again, their run stats aren't great as well, even with Monungai, second leading rusher in Rutgers history, first team all Big Ten. He was second team last year. So he's legitimately really good. But like you said, he's just a stocky guy. Probably the comp would be Cam Skattebo from Arizona State as far as kind of how he runs. He's not going to break a bunch
I would imagine, not as good of an offensive line as what Skattebo had.
Yeah, not a great offensive line. They had one guy in their offensive line during the second team. He's got 49 straight starts at Rutgers. Holland Pierce, pretty good. And a couple of the guys were honorable mention that have 12 starts. So they have a decent offensive line with some experience, but this is a game where, you'd be very disappointed if K-State doesn't win it. The bowl games are tougher now because we talked about this last year. It's about kind of want to. And I think both teams last year wanted to win that game. K-State and NC State, even without their best defensive player, still put up a pretty good fight in that game. But K-State was in control, but NC State was trying. And I think Rutgers will too. Like, Shiano's in his 5th or 6th year back after, trying the NFL thing. And he's got Rutgers to 2 bowls, one during the COVID year, one last year. And then this will be his 3rd bowl trip at Rutgers. And this will be
second.
Huh?
COVID doesn't count.
COVID doesn't count. That's right. Yeah. They went to the Gator Bowl during the COVID year, which was bizarre. But I think his teams, when he was at Rutgers the first time, were better. He had some legitimately pretty good. The team K-State played was a very solid football team. And I think this is more mid-pack. We're talking West Virginia level, maybe slightly better than that. And if K-State doesn't win this one, I think you're disappointed. It would be a 9-win season. I think people are going to downplay it because it's in a watered down, somewhat Big 12 and against not a great bowl opponent, but I'll take a 9-win season. I'm back to being excited about the season after that. You called it limped into the 8-4 finish, and that's true. But going to a fun bowl game and getting a win would still be a fun end of the season. As fun as you can get. It's better than the alternative, like being a Jayhawk.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of where I go with this too. Last year, I think a lot of people were just like, "Oh, why play in the NIT for basketball?" At the end of the day, if you give me the option of I can watch K-State or I can't, I would rather have that going on. If everybody else is going to be doing something, I would at least like to be able to see what I prefer to see in that type of product going as well. So yeah, it's a bowl game. I think this is good timing depending on how people are spending their time around the holidays, everybody being at home and around family, and you can all watch the game together or whatever it may be. And K-State has the opportunity here to get to 9 wins, and I think that they should as long as they take care of it. And this is a team, we know that there are obviously already some guys that have announced intentions to go into the portal, but for the most part, I think K-State will have a lot of their guys play in this game regardless of what they end up deciding in terms of, if they're going to come back for an extra year of eligibility or guys that might have NFL decisions on their plate. And then in addition to that, like, everybody has wanted to see the younger offensive line guys, and you're going to get your opportunity in this game in all likelihood. I mean, Carver Willis has been a guy that was just announced as intending to enter the portal when it opens tomorrow. So that opens a spot to maybe see some different guys on the offensive line. Defensively, how will some of that look? And then, a guy like DJ Giddens, you know him better than we do, fan. He comes across as the kind of guy that would probably play in this game even if he was deciding to go for the NFL draft after this year. And guys have done that before at K-State, and believe it or not, they didn't get hurt. They didn't ruin their careers because last I checked, Cooper Beebe's doing just fine for the Cowboys right now. So not a problem there. Deuce Vaughn and Ben Sinnott did not hurt their draft stock. Ben Sinnott opted out, but Deuce Vaughn did not hurt his draft stock when he played in the Sugar Bowl. I was grouping them in together. Felix Anudike-Uzomah played in that game. He was just fine, still a first-round pick. So I think, it gets overblown, and it's unfortunate when it happens to guys if they get hurt or whatever happens. But it is so rare. And then I think you can look at the history of the person, which is why if DJ Giddens were to decide not to play in it, I get it. He was banged up at the end of the year. Makes a little bit more sense, but it comes across as a guy that probably won't let that happen. And I know Kleiman and a lot of the team has been encouraging everybody to play in the bowl game. So there are things like that to play for. It does carry a lot of momentum going into next year. And yes, I'm not advocating for people to take this 8-4 season and love it up and say that it was good. It's not a problem. It should have been better than what it was. But there is the opportunity to finish strong. Winning 9 games at least in 3 straight seasons is significant, and it sets you up for next year when you go into that game with Iowa State to open the season, and you feel good about it. And probably the most interesting thing to watch for, Avery Johnson is 3 touchdown passes away from swiping the single-season touchdown pass record at K-State. We have a handful of guys tied at 24 that we've talked about in past years. Will Howard obviously tied it last season. Could have broken it if he had played in the bowl game, but he didn't. So that is going to be something that might be the most interesting thing to watch for in this bowl game, is how Avery Johnson looks in it, and then also what the receiving situation looks like as well. So that's kind of the setup there, and how this thing moves forward for K-State. We'll have a lot over the next week plus on the lead up to the bowl game, and also where things kind of sit in terms of who's transferring, who's not, what all that's going to look like in K-State editions for next year. So stay on the lookout for that. Any other thoughts on the Rate Bowl and kind of what intrigues you about this game, or how you're psyching yourself up for a matchup with 7-5 Rutgers for a K-State team that only won 1 game in November?
I was just going to point out that it is a little bit bizarre and fun that Greg Schiano was the coach the first time and then left, and then is back at Rutgers for this game. So that is kind of bizarre and fun. And bowl games are meant to be fun. It's a game that's being played in the Diamondback Stadium the day after Christmas. Why not? It's football. Well, this is a game that in April, May, everybody says that they miss. This is a game for the sickos, by the sickos. Might be your last chance to see DJ Giddens play at K-State.
Yeah, Schiano, the bounce back, joining Bill Snyder, and now Scott Frost joining the bounce back club. So,
yeah, well,
I was just going to say, sentimentally, this bowl, I went to the Copper Bowl as a freshman at K-State, so that again dates me, but that was a fun trip. I also went to the Inside.com Bowl, which was not a fun trip when Bill Snyder rotated El Roberson and Mark Dunn every series in the game, and K-State's offense did absolutely nothing against a decent Syracuse team, not a good one. So I'm hoping it's more like the first trip I made to Arizona and not the second one to this bowl game. Also went to a couple Fiesta Bowls, but it's a fun location. Like, going to Arizona is nice. I'm planning to go down with DY, so I'll be down there to watch and cover the game. So that will be fun to get out of Kansas. And then the Rutgers revenge factor. I mean, I do like the chance to beat that team after they destroyed Ron Prince's only bowl team at K-State. So that'll be a fun thing to look forward to as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not a great game. I remember that game growing up. It was in the era where TV was kind of transitioning and everything, but we were still very basic cable, wired into it. But the game was on NFL Network.
Mm-hmm.
And so to watch it, my dad signed up for the 1 week free trial of Cox's bigger cable package. And So yeah, it was great. We were going to get to watch K-State, but like that's when I'm home over Christmas break, and I'm getting access to channels I'd never seen before. Like I was able to watch like a ton of cartoons on Boomerang and everything. I was like, yeah, we should keep this. This seems like a good thing. I think it was another like year or two before we actually, got better channels than just like the main like 40 that were coming across for us. That's what I remember about that game. But yes, as somebody that has gone to the Phoenix area back-to-back years for bowl games in the 12-13 seasons, it is no matter the situation here, and I get why people may not be fired up for it, here's what you can basically look at. K-State is basically a lock to win this game. And like Fan said, you get to leave Kansas during the winter and go spend a couple days down in the Phoenix area where the weather is going to be nice. Bring the golf clubs if you're a golfer. Do whatever if you want. Both times, great trips. And one of those ended with K-State getting blown out by Oregon, and the other one they blew out Michigan. But it was so good the first time we went for that Fiesta Bowl, my family decided to go back. So it is good in that respect to go down there and do all that. And
it's not.
I wish I didn't have a 1-year-old daughter to where spending Christmas Day with her was important to me. So I don't mean it like that, but I was like, I would like to be down there watching that game. So
internet people, do not clip that. Do not clip that, please.
It's not the Liberty Bowl, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Obviously, I wish that I did have Christmas Day to spend with a 1-year-old daughter because, I am staying behind. I am not going to the game. I've already made that a firm decision that I'm not going. So, if I didn't have a 1-year-old daughter that Christmas Day was important to be with, then yeah, I would probably be down there. If she was older, I'd say, well, let's just go spend Christmas Day down there. But that is not an option with a 1-year-old. I don't think she can handle a drive to Phoenix and back. So we'll see how it goes there. That'll do it for Rate Bowl talk right now. It's to me, this is not as interesting of a matchup as the NC State game last year, especially because we just think about, we knew what the big anticipation with that game last year was. And it was that, okay, this is Avery Johnson's team now. You have that. Instead, this is kind of a team that's picking up the pieces to rally themselves moving forward into next year. I don't know what the comp would be in terms of teams that have kind of been like that before, where, they have to kind of regroup in that year before, finish strong, and build the next year. I mean, I guess maybe in theory you would look at it and say the 2021 K-State team to 22, where they were set up in a bowl game that you thought, man, why would we want to go to Houston for this? But you played LSU. It was pretty much a guaranteed win because of how many guys weren't going to play for LSU. And I think the guys that stayed, it propelled it moving forward into the next year. And obviously it worked out for K-State. So maybe K-State's their own best example for how that ends up looking and moving forward. We'll step aside here for a second, and I'll deliver what everybody is thinking about. I know holiday season, and you're thinking, well, if I was getting somebody a gift, what I want to give them K-State basketball tickets, Rate Bowl tickets. Do both of those if you want, but I would probably say, let's do it for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, because this is your chance to give the gift of Ireland, and not just the gift of Ireland. I'd say the gift of a lifetime, whether it's for yourself or the Wildcat fan in your life. An incredible trip to Ireland for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic is the perfect way to kick off the 2025 season. Enjoy all the sights, sounds, and excitement of Ireland while cheering on K-State in one of college football's most unique settings. Get ready for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Visit cats2ireland.com to learn more. That's cats, the number 2, Ireland.com. All right. Speaking of our Cyclone friends, they had a rough go of it yesterday in the Big 12 title game. They lost 45-19 to Arizona State. Well earned for Arizona State. Basically, since mid-October, they had played like the best team in the Big 12. I think they had the most talent to go with it as well, and they were able to overcome not having Jordan Tyson in that game. Didn't really matter. Cam Scatteraboo was as good as advertised for the national audience that hadn't watched a ton of him. And now Arizona State officially has more Big 12 championships than Iowa State, KU, West Virginia, Missouri, and Texas Tech. Teams that all spent at least, getting close to 15 years for West Virginia now in this league. I guess this was year 13. So teams that have at least spent over a decade in this league, Arizona State now has more Big 12 titles than them. Drew, your reaction to how the Big 12 played out yesterday?
Iowa State could never win the big game. I think that was confirmed there because I don't want to say that was handed on a silver platter with Jordan Tyson not playing, but I mean, that's as good as a chance Iowa State's going to get for a little bit to have the second best player for Arizona State not play. And then that game not even be competitive was pretty crazy. I said it after K-State lost to Arizona State that I thought that Arizona State was the best team that K-State had played all season. So personally felt pretty nice to watch them beat the crap out of Iowa State. Also, I think that Arizona State probably gives the Big 12 the best chance in the playoff of the teams that could have gotten to the playoff to advance. So it's fun. Kenny Dillingham is a really, really good coach. And I think that they could be a thorn in the side for a while because he's only 34 years old.
Yeah, and they're going to have a decent amount of this team coming back next season. Scadaboo won't be back, but you look around at everybody else. Levitt is only going into his third year of eligibility next year. Well, really his second, just because he redshirted his first year at Michigan State. And then you look at some of the others. Jordan Tyson, I believe, is going to be back, even though he would technically be draft eligible. They'll bring back a decent chunk of the offensive line. So a lot of guys for Arizona State will be back next season. And if you have a coach like Kenny Dillingham, that does make Arizona State one of the scarier teams in the Big 12 moving forward, because we just talked about the weather setup down there. Like, that is an appeal to people. Obviously, Arizona State as a school has an appeal that some of the others do not. And I think also for some of these guys, being near a big major metropolitan area is a big draw, and still having some of the other stuff that goes into it. So Arizona State definitely has set themselves up in a really nice spot with winning it in year one and seeing what might come after that. Fan, were you surprised at how easy Arizona State made this look?
I was. I when with Tyson out, I thought Iowa State, I didn't think they would blow them out or anything, but I thought Iowa State had definitely the advantage going in. And I was really surprised how much Arizona State put them on them. Now, Iowa State seemed to have a stretch where they looked like us against BYU for a while, turning the ball over, especially early in the second half on multiple possessions. But Arizona State took advantage. You got to give them credit. And they did the things they needed to do to win that game. Now, I agree with you. I like their chances to win, but, with Tyson out and now with the defender out that they got kicked out, that's not ideal for them going into likely a matchup against Texas. So that's not great for them, but I'm happy for them. I do think they have a great program. Now, I did point out, they went 5-1 in one possession games this year, which is good. Like, that's credit to them. But those things generally even out over time in seasons. So if they get in that situation again, it's not likely they're going to go 5-1 again in one possession games. I think 4 or 5 of those were within 3 or 4 points. So that's something to watch. Dillingham is a really good coach. Obviously, did some really good things. It'd be interesting to see how they continue to build that program going forward, especially with the limitations they had going into this season in their athletic department being an absolute train wreck. So we'll see what happens, but credit to them. I agree with you, Drew. They were the best team we played this year, and they've showed it down the stretch.
Yep. So Arizona State, Big 12 champs in this first year of a big old Big 12, and they get to be the first one to reap the benefit of going to the playoff via their win. Let's finish off talking football with some fraud watch, the final fraud watch of 2024. 2 frauds out. 1 fraud already replaced one of the outgoing frauds. Here it is. Read it and weep. This is official now. Look at this. We're not coddling Mike Gundy and Kyle Whittingham anymore. They are on fraud advisory. Both appear to be coming back to coach next year. Both need to get better in a hurry because they are turning into, they're getting old. They're letting this fade. They're going to ruin their own legacy. Who would have ever thought that coaches that stay at a school for that long could maybe put themselves in a position to undo everything they've built and all the good grace that they had built up? It'll come back in a couple of years for both those guys, but they look to be heading in a bad spot because Kyle Whittingham is losing all of his quarterbacks unless Cam Rising decides to come back for a 12th year of college football. So fraud advisory for Mike Gundy and Kyle Whittingham, two guys in very similar spots and very similar hairstyles at this point in time. So the stud category, Kenny Dillingham, he is the king stud in the Big 12 right now. He deserves it. He's earned it. Kalani Sitake just got a contract extension. So what he did this year, impressive. We'll see what BYU looks like moving forward. Willie Fritz still hanging in there because 5 wins with this Houston team kind of feels like a miracle. Chris Kleiman's still there because I do still have the belief. And again, if this is what a bad season for Chris Kleiman looks like, that everybody wants to kind of burn things down and freak out about, that probably leads to some changes. That tends to be a good thing because Chris Kleiman hasn't coughed up a 3-9 season yet, like Mike Gundy. So we'll keep monitoring that. But Kleiman is on thin ice in the stud category. He's going to have to get out of the gates hot next year, make some things look better. Dave Aranda, Matt Campbell, they occupy no man's land. I got to give Dave some love right now. He proved the haters wrong this year, me being the king of them, mainly because Sawyer Robertson apparently is the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner. Who would have guessed? And then Matt Campbell, he can hang out right there. He doesn't deserve to be a fraud after going to the Big 12 title game, but getting beat as bad as he did with Arizona State missing their second best offensive player raises some questions about his status. So we'll keep an eye on that. Deion Sanders, Lance Leipold. Look, good on Lance to get himself back in this spot, to only be in the fraud watch after how this year was trending, but it needs to be monitored moving forward next year. Same thing for Deion Sanders. Look, congratulations. You've got obviously a great gene pool, and you had 2 incredibly talented kids. Well, you had one incredibly talented kid and another that was okay that could play for you. Congrats. Oh, and a not adopted but adopted son in Travis Hunter that I think you love more than both of your children. So good for you, Deion. Let's see what you do without all those guys next season. Monitoring. That's why it's still fraud watch for Deion Sanders. And people should know that's me giving him a lot of love. He has risen greatly from where we started this thing. And then the warnings, all these guys just, if they're your head coach, you're probably thrown up in a bathroom somewhere. Sonny Dykes, weak-ass schedule. Joey McGuire, weak-ass schedule. Brent Brennan, just terrible. Neil Brown, sorry about it, dude. Good luck getting a job. Probably is like an analyst for Chris Kleiman or something. Scott Frost, welcome back, loser. Gus Malzahn, such a loser that you had to quit a job to go be the offensive coordinator at Florida State, which is working for another fraud in Mike Norvell. So that's just a collection of losers. Is that a school of losers, a pack of losers? I don't know, whatever you want to call them. And then Scott Satterfield. No, there's no more room for just not grading people. You tried to be good enough and cute enough to start the year that you can just be labeled a fraud. So I guess this is actually a win for Scott Satterfield that I feel significant one way or the other to give him fraud notoriety now, as opposed to just saying he's not even good enough to be here. But that is the final fraud watch of 2024. Any critiques or things that you want to say good things about with this fraud watch?
What if I would have told you in week 8 that after Cincinnati beat Arizona State to get both teams to 5-2, that's where these two coaches would have ended up on the list at the end of the season? I think we would have said they were pretty crazy.
I don't know. I actually think this is where it would have gone, because I think Kenny at 5-2, he could have lost the rest of his games, and I still probably would have put him here.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati, that's just one of those I would have said, yeah, Scott Satterfield sucks. Congrats on beating Jeff Sims. So
That's true.
You know, but yes, it would have been crazy. You would have thought, well, they might both end up in a good spot or something. No, they didn't.
And I do agree. I think Scott Frost deserves to start at warning after being a complete fraud at Nebraska.
Yep. Yeah. And I just don't think you're going to waltz back in and recapture the magic at UCF like you once had. This is not the American Athletic Conference anymore, bucko. So you're going to have to actually compete for a real conference title and win a real national championship. No more just acting like you got screwed. So, yeah, there it goes. And sorry to all the other Texas coaches in here, Sonny and Joey. I don't know. It's not looking good for you guys.
Mason, I'm going to put you on the spot. 2 questions here.
Okay.
One, of the guys on the warning category, who is the most likely to get up to stud?
Boy, this is a great question. I really think there's only 2 of them that are in consideration here, and it's for different things. Sonny Dykes and Joey McGuire are the only ones that could maybe get there. Sonny, because I would have put him in it 2 years ago because he played in a national championship. And there, you could make the case that maybe they could be decent next year. For Joey McGuire, it's that the recruiting carries him above. But I think he's a little bit more of like a kind of a snake oil salesman type guy. And some of that talent that he brought in last year is already leaving. So you worry about that. I'll give it to Sonny Dykes just because I think he could still rise, but none of these guys would make me excited if they were my head coach right now. So there you go. If I was a lousy Texas Tech fan that only won 7 games every year, then I would probably try to tell myself I'm excited about Joey McGuire, but no.
My second question for you is who of the guys in the warning is going to be the next one to get the sack?
Brent Brennan. Come on down. Well, I don't know. Brent Brennan or Scott Satterfield, I would guess. Because I think McGuire and Dykes both would get another year after next season, no matter what. It'd have to get real extreme. But I think Brennan and Satterfield are both gone after this upcoming year. I think Brennan is getting this second-year opportunity because they're kind of like, can't really fire a guy after 1 year and admit that our new AD that we spent all this money to steal from Missouri just screwed everything up royally for us. And then, Cincinnati's going to have to realize there are better options out there than Eli Drinkwitz's dad. So, that's where I go on that. Well, I think Drink is younger, so I think this is how it has to work out. He was under Satterfield at App State. So,
yeah, I was going to say Arizona might be on the Purdue path that Purdue was on this year, the way they looked this season.
Yeah, it's not looking good for them. I don't know what the schedule looks like next year for Arizona other than a week 3 loss to K-State. But let's see. They get Hawaii coming to Tucson next year. BYU at home, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and KU. And then at Arizona State, at Cincinnati, at Colorado, at Houston, at Iowa State. So Iowa State will still be good enough to win in Ames. Houston should be better next year. I think Colorado still will be okay enough. We'll see. That'll be interesting. Cincinnati, that's a fraud bowl. Anything can happen in those games. Arizona State, wax them again. KU, who knows? O-State, who knows? Baylor will beat them. BYU will beat them. K-State will beat them. So, yeah, they're looking right now at, I'm going to guarantee at least 6 losses already. Like 6, you are not winning that game on their schedule. So we'll see how it ends up working out there. We'll finish things off here. I'll rapid fire at you guys. The Big 12 Bowl games that have been announced and thrown out there so far. If I missed any of them, that's tough. Whatever. First one, 9 days from it, K-State will be playing Drake in basketball when this is going on, but West Virginia and Memphis down in Frisco. Memphis, a 1.5 point favorite already against West Virginia. Do the Mountaineers have any fight in them, depending on who their head coach is going to be?
No.
Yeah. That's kind of a mess.
Memphis probably wants to be there.
Yeah, to still go to a bowl after you fire your coach, that can't be the best situation.
Texas Tech, they've won their last couple of games like that. This one, December 31st, little New Year's Eve action during the day. Baylor and LSU in the Texas Bowl. LSU, they love them a good Texas Bowl, as we all know. This feels like a big one here because, like, Brian Kelly has some of that image rebuilding that needs to be done. Like, he kind of needs to win this bowl game to not satisfy people, but to at least hit pause on the hate and the doubt right now. And Baylor, this would be massive for them. their opportunity. This would give them a 9-win season then, and feel really good going into next year. So Baylor, LSU, what's the lean here for you guys?
Dave Aranda revenge.
I would lean LSU. Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. I think LSU probably wins that one.
See, I'm going to go Baylor because I again don't think LSU wants to be there.
That's a good point.
As a Chief Sawyer Robertson guy, I'm going Baylor. So I was on that before anybody. DY shortly behind me. So we've kind of been the Sawyer boys all year. Texas Tech, Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl. This is two teams that are pretty boring to watch. I don't know. This one I have no idea. You could tell me that the final score is 55-54, and I'm not going to care. I think Texas Tech will win it. Texas Tech kind of likes to just beat up on teams in bowl games. They're really important to those boys in Lubbock.
Yeah, I'd say Texas Tech. I don't think Arkansas is very good.
Yeah, I'll go Tech, but my prediction, that's not really a prediction, is that Taj Brooks will have like 45 carries.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, what are the NFL prospects for
120 yards?
New Mexico Bowl, TCU, somebody stepped up and said, well, a couple Big 12 teams have to go to a crapshoot. We'll be the ones to do it. They get Louisiana in Albuquerque, December 28th. This is the lead-in to some better games later on in the evening. The Pop-Tarts Bowl is going to be going on a couple hours later with Iowa State and Miami. I bet we're all going TCU here.
Yes.
I wonder how many yards Josh Hoover throwing for.
400.
450.
Iowa State, Miami, Pop-Tarts Bowl on December 28th down in Orlando. This is bogus, by the way, that this game, K-State goes down and does all the heavy lifting to turn it into the behemoth of bowl season, where last year it's just like, oh, it's a weeknight. We're going to tuck it like late into the evening. People are going to watch it because of the pop. This thing is getting top billing now. This is 3:30 Eastern time on ABC on December 28th, which is that a Friday or I think that's a Saturday. So that's bogus that K-State isn't getting to reap the benefits of what they did to build this thing. But I'll take Iowa State because, I don't think Cam Ward's going to play in this game. So Miami will have a skeleton roster in Iowa State. Even though Iowa State has played in this game multiple times and lost it to ACC schools, and also had some of their better players say, I don't love my school enough to play in this game. I'm going to opt out and quit on you. Some people just like their school more, like Deuce Vaughn, like we talked about. I'm sure I don't want to put words into DJ Giddens' mouth, although somebody has to, because I'm not sure he's going to have them. I think DJ Giddens loves his school more than that. But, hey, to each their own. I also would not want to represent Iowa State University if I went there. So where you guys go on this game?
This feels like one of those want-to-be-there games where Iowa State definitely wants to be there much more than Miami, who got snubbed out of the playoffs. So I think Iowa State wins.
Yeah, again, Iowa State just probably cares more. I don't think that a Miami person, a fan, will even know that game's on.
Yeah, well, and it's only a couple hour drive for them, but I don't think they're going to worry about making the trek to Orlando. Although probably a lot of T-shirt fans in the state, that the cheap tickets, they might actually have a decent crowd there. And then this could be the best game of bowl season. BYU Colorado in the Alamo Bowl, December 28th, 6:30. This is right after that Pop-Tarts Bowl. This is going to be a classic, like old bowl game season, like that day where, Pop-Tarts Bowl has some juice to it now, but like this is a legit, still fun game to me because Deion Sanders has been adamant about his guys playing in this game. I think BYU, same type of buy-in. A lot of their players, I think, are going to be able to come back next year. And really, I mean, whatever you think about either coach, Kalani Sitake and Deion Sanders, probably two of the more gregarious personalities on the sideline in the Big 12. This is going to be an awesome game. I think Colorado probably wins it as long as the guys stay true to what Deion said about them playing in the bowl game.
Yeah, I think we kind of saw the BYU magic run out as the season ended. And I think Colorado, if they want to be there, and I think Deion is old school enough that he'll have those guys want to be there, that Colorado's going to win that game.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go Colorado. Just the funny part to me is that we're in a world where a conference game is also a bowl game.
Yeah.
We've had conference, non-conference games, we have conference bowl games. Let's just have a whole season schedule that's just conference game.
Yeah, it's probably about time to do something like that. But
We're getting
whatever.
close.
We are getting there. All these games are getting played, and the easiest way to do it is just make everybody play everybody in their conference, and then each conference gets a spot in this playoff, and then you play it out, and problem solved. You don't have to worry about all these other problems. But we'll talk more down the road about the rate bowls. We get closer to it, get a better picture of what the rosters and the alignment might look like in that game. We'll also talk a little bit more about the playoffs and everything that start in 13 days from now, and where Arizona State might fit into that, and also some notable former Wildcats that are going to get high billing this. Obviously, Will Howard has a lot to work for. Kobe Savage won a Big Ten title yesterday with Oregon. So a lot of stuff to follow along with this football season. And then the best place to follow along with everything that will get underway officially tomorrow with the transfer portal and K-State. You can find it over at KStateOnline.com. Go to On3, find us there. Drew, DY, occasionally myself will have some good stuff for you and everything that you can find or want to find on that front. So we're out of here. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. That's KSU_fan. Back again next Sunday. We'll talk more about this. We'll get ready for basketball next Tuesday against Drake as well. And then plenty of stuff throughout this week. Drew and I know we'll have some transfer portal stuff to talk about pretty quickly as the week gets underway. So that's all there for you. Thanks for watching and listening.